Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Positional Play for Anfield Index. Dear God, it's all going off today as we sit here on Wednesday, the 6th of August, 5:30 in the afternoon, not the usual time. I feel like, how you put this, one of those weird, shitty drive time DJs who sort of takes you home when you're in traffic and you're just trying to get there as fast as possible. But we'll try and bring a bit of a different vibe to that. I'm your normal host, Dave Davis, coming to you from as sunny as buggery, Edinburgh, to be honest. I've got the blinds down and there's still sun beaming through, which we shouldn't complain about at this time of year. Fingers crossed, wherever you are in the world, it is nice and the sun is shining on the righteous. Even if you ain't, to be honest, Christ, there's plenty we want to talk about with Liverpool right now. I mean, look at this. Just got going. And this is in the chat panel from Yanis. Jota, Diaz, Nunes, Chiesa played more than 4,800 minutes in the Premier League alone. Assuming Rio gets a few hundred minutes, we need one more forward in addition to Ekitike. Yanis, we're going to be talking about forwards and minutes. We're going to be talking about quotes from former players, to be honest, at the same time. We're going to be talking about youngsters and the impact they'll have. Also, rivals and who we might be pinching players off. And before anyone panics, of course, we will talk about the saga. I think it's okay to say saga a little bit with Alexander Isak and everything around that, isn't it? Plenty to get through, plenty to discuss. And my new toy's on the screen, so I'm just enjoy playing with this at the same time as well. So what's first up on the docket, ladies and gents? The midfield scenario. Who, when, all of them, youngsters. There's quite a few things in the mix. And the player to start with isn't even really a senior player, but he is now set to be a first-team squad member. If there's any doubt about that, I'll kind of point you towards the tweet that Paul Joyce put out last night, where he said, as Tyler Morton leaves, Trey Ione, 18, is being considered as a full-time member of Liverpool's first-team setup following a strong pre-season, which continued against Athletic Bilbao, or Club Athletic as they prefer to be known. Now, here's the thing about young Trey. Obviously, in this game, he was centre-back, wasn't he? Alongside Andy Robertson in the first one of the two, however you wish to phrase it. But we're talking about him in the midfield positions, which is crazy competitive. And even with all that, I know there's like me and many others will start to say in the chat panel, we need one more in that midfield. And that's what probably we're going to talk about a little bit around rankings and who's most suitable. Now, on the board right now, and I got jumped at almost for this last time, in the two double pivot spots are Dominic Szoboszlai and Alexis McAllister. And people jumped to last time, well, where's Grav? Well, this board was set up for the first day of the season, as in Bournemouth at home, for which Ryan Gravenberch is suspended. So let's just keep that in mind. But with that in mind, I did want to talk about who's the flavour, who's going to be rotated, who's going to be the starter and all that. And people, it's easy just to say horses for courses. And of course, who's fit, keeping them fresh. But it never just works that way simply, does it? The two on the pitch, Alexis McAllister, first of all, let's be clear. I'm not really concerned with other opinions on this. For me, the best midfielder in the Premier League. Alexis McAllister has to be in Liverpool's starting 11. He's the best passer in midfield. He's the best all-round player. The only thing you would wish from Alexis McAllister is he is diesel rather than petrol-powered, isn't he? Top pace just isn't there. And Mia, you're asking me why I have 12 on the field because I was dragging Trey on to illustrate that. But this is kind of the point we can't get distracted, people, of what we're trying to talk about. But for me, Alexis McAllister, first name on the team sheet in the midfield area. As with Gravenberch being suspended, I've got Dominic Szoboszlai here at the number 8. And I thought he had a great game against Bilbao in that second one. But really important to say, this is proper first world problems. There is still a little bit of a question mark against Dominic Szoboszlai. For the record, Don't just start coming for me without hearing it. He is still a player I want in the first team. I think he's crucial to Liverpool, but that doesn't mean everything's perfect with him. And as annoying as it is, there's a great piece from Sam Maguire on this in his Patron, where he actually broke down Szoboszlai at number 8 for this game and referenced Brighton last season as well. So just a few bits to pull out from what Sam Maguire put. He said, in this game, Szoboszlai was deployed in a double midfield pivot, as we know. He attempted the most passes, 82, and a pass success rate of 89. He was accurate with 80% of the long passes he attempted, while also playing 12 passes into the final third, the most of any player in this match. And I thought it was absolutely great. Absolutely great in this. You know, it's always hard to say when a player's got 8 on the back and the Gerrard comparisons, and it's never going to be exactly the same. But there was a million and one things to like from Dominik Szoboszlai in this game. However, here's also part which is absolutely true of the same game. This is what Stam wrote. Out of possession, he still worries me. Against Athletic Club, he failed to win a single tackle and he won just 43% of his ground duels. It was the same issue against Brighton last term when he was used in a deeper role and he looked non-existent in duels. Just to be clear, people, this is not remotely a criticism as saying, you know, he's a bad player. I want Dominik Szoboszlai in the starting 11. I think he is an important cog. We saw that last season at 10. Yes, Florian Wirtz has come, but for me, he is there. The slight concern that, and I'm intrigued by this, and obviously share your thoughts in the chat panel here, is the physicality there if it was McAllister and Szoboszlai. What I mean by that is, think back to that Carabao Cup final. Think back to where, unfortunately, Joe Linton, Bruno, and Tonali kind of bullied our midfield 3 at the time, didn't they, a little bit? And it's just that slight concern to me. That's the only thing you question for me against Dominik Szoboszlai. And again, best midfielder in the Premier League, Alexis McAllister. But it's right just to ask that question. So then you're thinking, well, are they first choice? Is it this? And again, horses for courses, rotation. Of course, we're going to talk about that. But I'm going to drag a few onto the pitch. So please don't panic, people, before we start talking about who, you know, shouldn't be and how many players. Grab is the obvious one. He's the potential option. Could be one of the double pivot. There could also be Curtis Jones, another rotational option at the same time. He almost... I don't know with Curtis, and as I'm saying his name, I know people will look and say, no, not for me, squad player and all this. And I think he almost has assumed that role of squad player. Just doing a little bit of digging on this week for Curtis. This is so important to say. He's got a couple of years left to go on his deal. And from doing a bit of digging at Anfield Index, the information we've got back is trying to do that renewal isn't maybe proving it as smooth as they would want, as in terms of what Curtis Jones was looking for. And I get it in that regard, because England international, homegrown, all those types of things, probably looking at parity with his midfield squad colleagues as well. That will come into the mix as well. So it is just a little bit of, as much as we're going to talk about Trey Ione and where he comes in, who's even your starters in midfielder? Is it just simply horses for courses in that regard? Also important to say, there's no new names in the mix, is there? There's no, you want them, Belabors, Whartons, all those types of things. Not really coming up, are they? To be honest, is what it is a little bit. However, if young Trey is in the mix, does he trump this guy here? Does he trump Wataru Endo? Is it a case of, and you could maybe dispute the rankings, but a core 4 of McAllister, Szoboszlai, Gravenberch and Curtis? Is Trey the 5th? Is Endo the 5th? Or the centre-back scenario is a little bit different to talk about. It's just a little bit unsure at the moment, isn't it, on that? Yeah, if it is Trey is in the mix as well, It's a bit like the Rio discussion, as a few mentioned. How many minutes would Trey Ione be worth? How many minutes do you think he'll get in central midfield? Of course, you'd fancy him for Carabao, FA Cup, all the, sounds terrible, but the secondary competitions, of course it is that way. But first team minutes, comfortable with Trey playing those? That's maybe the big question, isn't it? And it's funny, there's a few already in the chat pal talking about Rio and saying Rio's better than, Gakpo. These youngsters are shaking things up a little bit all round. Speaking of who they're shaking things up through, he's kind of on the edge there, unfortunately, in this diagram, Harvey Elliott. And I mean, that came late last night, doesn't it? And even now, there's still stories that, just looking at this here, latest report, Harvey Elliott is very high on Red Bull Leipzig's shortlist, as many people are there. There's several clubs that are interested in the 22-year-old, and Spurs have been linked, but Leipzig are pushing now. And this is interesting. Elliott's already spoken with Werner and Schaefer, two directors at Red Bull Leipzig, as per the exclusive from Transfermarkt and Manuel Veth, which David Ornstein, of course, ran, so you might have seen it there. So there's a departure. Is that enough for you, though? Is that enough, then, to compete on all fronts? And we want to compete on all fronts. That core four, Trey, Endo, 5 and 6. Doesn't look like anyone's departing, does it at all? Doesn't look like, unfortunately, as many of us would want a Wharton Belabour, and I get that, anyone's coming in at the same time. John Leicester there saying, Trey reminds me a bit of Gravenberch with his frame and the way he moves. I wonder if he can play that Gravenberch position in the smaller cup competitions. Yeah, you do fancy he's going to get minutes in the double pivot. Will he be more of the, I suppose you'd say the 6? I know people on Tacticals get upset when you describe it this way, so let's just keep it double pivot. It really is just hard to read. But at the moment, I think we've got to consider Trey Ione as a senior option. As Paul Joyce tweeted the other day, as a few other patch journalists are putting in their articles. It will be absolutely fascinating to see how that one develops. And do you know what? That's a little bit of an introduction, because the second topic is the one that I bet most of you have seen today. Could be wrong on this. Jamie Carragher and his messy and unplanned. It was on the overlap, wasn't it? Where the fan show, you may have seen it on Sky. Now, the annoyance with me of this is I can't play you the video so you can actually see it, make your own judgments. You get body language, context, all those things when it's a live show recorded, however you want to put it. Because Sky would just shut it down in the embargo, even though realistically it would just be completely free advertising for them, wouldn't it? But such is the way of things. So let's talk about these, because they relate to the forward line. They relate to what's being discussed around this as well. So here's the quotes from Jamie Carragher that I made a note of. Again, I'm not going to do an impression or deliver body language, but just going to give you the quotes that we've written down here. Talking about Isak, of course. He will be an amazing signing, but from a Liverpool fan's point of view, for myself, I don't want Liverpool to spend 150 million on Isak. It feels a bit messy to me now. For me, when I think of Liverpool, it doesn't look really planned. I don't think the plan is to buy a striker for 80 million and then be looking to buy another one for 120. Which obviously opens the can of worms as it does on social media, and different people reply, there's retorts, all sorts of things that go on. But there's a couple of things in this for me in the attacking line, and the circumstances. Maybe that is the right thing to say. There's one quote that I've left out there from Jamie Carragher, and he said, when he was almost discussing it with Scholes, he said, around news Isak and his agent, did he not tell Newcastle months ago he wanted to move on? Well, yeah. We all know this. There's been various reports from both sides, in Geordie patch journalists, another UK patch journalist from our side as well, that he said that. And in fact, a little bit earlier today, this is the tweet from Mel Reddy, who used to work for Sky. Everyone will know who Mel Reddy is. The frustration for Alexander Isak and his camp is they very clearly and respectfully inform Newcastle of the forwards' desire to explore a fresh challenge well ahead of the summer. In doing so, it afforded the club a chance to attack the market on the front foot and secure a quality replacement long before it got to this messy point. So that kind of debunks that bit, didn't it? You know, it was clear, you know, Malready making it clear that Isak and his agent feel they clearly made Newcastle aware. And we've seen that in various reports. So it kind of felt that got a line through it for Carragher's chat and arguing. Now, the bit about it being messy and a bit about it being unplanned. If there's one thing Liverpool are not in this window, it is messy and planned. That is the exact opposite of the description you would apply. In fact, it's the description you would apply to Newcastle United. And I'm sure I'll be joined by some of them or comments in their chat panel soon. But Liverpool plan well ahead. As we know with this window, they've done a ton of groundwork in terms of speaking to players, speaking to agents, analysts, scouts, all that type of thing. We know they've done an absolute ruck of groundwork. If you have any doubt, look at what happened with Florian Wirtz. Look at that situation where it's the quiet visit that only comes out afterwards. Arne Slot, Michael Edwards, Richard Hughes orchestrating that beautifully. Look as well at who they didn't get but still did the groundwork for. As it came out later after his signing, Cherki, Arne Slot, which no one had until afterwards, made that visit to the south of France, didn't he, to speak to Cherki before they pulled the trigger on Florian Wirtz, which means, again, the exact opposite of being messy and unplanned. Liverpool, so far, have been meticulous. The only thing that's really causing the mess in the Liverpool transfer window right now is, unfortunately, the chain they're in with Newcastle and their inability to do business, as we know. So, yeah, we will have to see on that, won't we? Eh? There's a few breaking news people coming in, tweeting in this, but again, we don't want to check it's a spoofer. So feel free, if there are other names coming in, to drop them in, provided it is genuine. We will see. But in terms of what is happening at the same time, well, Darwin Núñez is heading off. And again, this doesn't sound messy and unplanned whatsoever, does it? Because, as I'm sure you've seen, and I'm just picking one of the latest reports, we know Ornstein, Romano, everyone's tweeted this, but I'm just reading Fabrizio Romano's tweet here. Understand the contract for Darwin Núñez at Al Hilal will be valid for 3 years, 2028 June. Darwin opened the doors to Al Hilal last week. The contract details are being sorted. Once that's done, there will be a here we go. B. Liverpool will receive 53 million euros plus add-ons as exclusively revealed. Now, we've had this on a few reports over Darwin Núñez so far, haven't we? That it's 53 million euros, which, again, if you get them at Tesco, translates about 45 million. But important to say, there's add-ons, aren't they, that Liverpool are doing the deal with for Al Hilal by the looks of it. So, I don't know. Is it a good fee? I think in the current market, and I want to be careful how I say this, we had the Napoli debacle. The AC Milan doesn't feel real, does it? That type of thing with the moves they're making. Yeah, I'm not really sure that this is, in terms of the yardstick and the amount, people will look and say, well, look at what others are going for. So, of course, it's got to be different. But, yeah, I think it's a decent deal. If we can get, as reported, somewhere around with the add-ons, 55 million, or actually, there you go, the latest one, 56.6 million if all the add-ons are triggered. Seems to be the suggestion. Again, we'll have to wait for further reports then. Yeah, I think that's good money. But again, Diaz out. That was always planned, wasn't it? Let's be honest. Núñez out. That was always planned. So what's messy and unplanned? I think for context, and we've got to bring this in, an unfortunate situation is with the tragedy over Diogo Jota, I think that changed the planning as well. Of course, it had to, unfortunately. So it looked like it would be Isak or Ekitike. But now, with the circumstances and the tragedy, Liverpool have made the planned decision in those circumstances to get both. Which then a little bit brings you to, I suppose, the ultimate question, which, and Carragher went back and forth with a few people, didn't he, around, oh, no, you're missing the point in terms of, it was the starter who's happy to be second. It's fudged. It's no one buys a backup for around 80 million quid. And it almost goes back to Yanis's point there at the start of the show that Jota, Diaz, Nunes, Chiesa played 4,800 minutes in the Premier League alone. So assuming Rio gets a few hundred minutes, we need one more forward in addition to Ekitike. Well, let's put Isak on the pitch just to be a bit greedy, eh? Is that core enough? Cody Gakpo, Hugo Ekitike, Alexander Isak, touch wood that he comes, that's the expectation. And if anyone's thinking that is, this is all going to collapse, David Ornstein about in the last hour to an hour and a half said, you can never be certain and, different things, but there is a strong chance that Alexander Isak has departed before the 1st of September and Liverpool is his preferred choice. So that's the latest from David Ornstein there. And maybe, just interestingly, I am seeing a few Bradley Barcola rumours there as well to Liverpool. Again, checking the source a little bit. I'll let you guys do that. But Gakpo, Salah, Ekitike, Isak. That alone is not enough. Of course, that alone is not enough. But I'm hovering over a superstar here, Florian Wirtz. Arne Slot has said Florian Wirtz can play from the left. We know in a different system completely, that kind of 3-4-2-1 that Leverkusen played, and he was behind shit coming from the left as one of the 10s. But he could be pushed higher into the forward line, cutting inside, allowing Kirkes to bomb on. That is possible. Arne Slot hasn't gone into that much depth, but he has said specifically that Wirtz could play from the left. Those words have left his mouth. Additionally, at the same time, this young man, and whoever it was earlier, is going to lose their shizzle and I'm putting all the players on the pitch, but you're just going to have to get over it because I'm putting all the forward options on there. Of course, he's not going to be there. Young Rio and Gamoa could play from the left as well, couldn't he? His minutes might be the key question that it comes down to. All those forward options you're looking at right now, and I know John Mycester there said, do you reckon Chiesa stays? There is an article that Paul Joyce has done today where he does mention that Federico Chiesa is expected to leave Liverpool, and I don't really think there's any doubt on that. But those forward options, and could even move, Frimpong up to cover Salah when AFCON starts, of course, that's been mentioned at the same time. But Salah, Gakpo, Ekitike, Isak, supported by Wirtz and Rio and Gamoa. Is that enough to cover the forward line? It might well be what Liverpool are deciding to go for. Genuinely. Again, there's a link to Bradley Barcola. There's been others. Malik Fofana, hasn't there, at Lyon? And you kind of have thought that with Tyler Morton now completing that move, obviously it was a great chance. We might have heard something more. It does seem quiet in that role, doesn't it? It doesn't mean it's done, but it seems to have gone cold, any link to Malik Fofana. So with that in mind, maybe, just maybe, this might be how Arne Slot and Richard Hughes see it. As a senior four, the youngsters that way. And I get it. There's plenty of quotes to say it's not enough. What about when Salah leaves for AFCON? What about injuries? All those types of things. Let me be clear on my opinion. I said this on many pods. I would love another one like a Malik Fofana, which to me would be an FSG style signing there. I think that would be worthwhile. Malik Fofana could play from the left and from the right at times as well. So if he comes in, you've got double cover in those positions. But might have to get our heads around this. Again, the question mark is that enough for competing on all fronts? That's the big question, isn't it? But to go back to what was mentioned at the top, messy and unplanned. So far, there's been nothing messy and unplanned about Liverpool's window. It's just the unfortunate scenario of relying on other clubs and different bits. So there we go. So we talk midfield, we talk the forward line. Let's be honest, that isn't everyone's main concern. And there's plenty of time in the window, so absolutely no one is panicking on this whatsoever at the moment. But those centre-backs, yeah. I mean, ahead of the Charity Shield, Community Shield, and the last game against Bilbao, Konate was the only one there, wasn't he? It was Konate with Endo in the second game. It was Robbo and Trey Ione in the first one against Bilbao. Naturally, there ain't no need to panic just yet by any means. But Virgil was ill. He's expected to be back for the Community Shield, as is Alisson. Joe Gomez, the minor Achilles, who's also apparently touch and go, as Arne Slot said, for the season opener. There's natural questions around this centre-back position. And everyone's almost thinking, well, Mark Gay or another youngster, and we'll talk about who's been linked. But just on the Gay scenario, it doesn't feel like Liverpool are going to get him before the Community Shield, are they? Of course they are. Oh, I'm sorry. Palace aren't going to do that. It's their season opener. And I get the question there. Konate and Gomez are injured. Who plays? That's what we've got to talk about at the same time. Glasner's been quite open around his frustrations this season and thinking Palace are failing, as he called it, like they did last season. If anyone doubts me on that, literally, this is the statement he made last week. Said, even though all the players are here, we haven't made the most of the transfer window so far. I was promised we'd be more active and bring in new players earlier this year. As of now, I've 17 outfield players. I hope we don't lose any more. If that happens and we get 4 on deadline day, it'll be a false start like last year. So that was his quotes on this. So he's being quite upfront. I mean, there was even rumours or suggestions that he might consider leaving, wasn't there, because of the poor start. And you're thinking, well, why are we talking about Glasner? I mean, he's also mentioned the CAS. I think a few people mentioned this in the chat the other night, the CAS ruling for Palace and their participation in the Europa, currently in the conference with that demotion. But August the 11th, we're waiting for that one. And if we are waiting for August the 11th, does that mean we've got to wait a bit longer if it is Gay to analyse that and, see if we're going to get him? I don't know. The only thing that we can say or talk about Gay recently was Ed Aarons of The Guardian put out yesterday that he understood, he tweeted this, Crystal Palace are yet to receive offers for Mark Gay, who is said to be happy to stay at Crystal Palace, or Selhurst Park, and see out the final year of his contract. Liverpool is still thought to be his preferred option, but Newcastle could revive interest. Now, just on that, Newcastle have bid for an AC Milan centre-half whose name escapes me. I can't remember his name today. Palace won 40 million. And Jennifer has kind of put exactly what it comes down to me a little bit so far. Palace, she's message there on YouTube. Palace said Gay won't leave for free, and he said he won't sign a new deal. Something has to give. That's what we all think, doesn't it? That surely Mark Gay coming in makes all the sense in the world, especially for a price tag around 40 million quid, where he is putting pressure on Ibu Konate. If one of the senior centre-halves is injured, you're not then too worried, are you? Thinking we've got senior cover there, especially again coming back to if Liverpool want to compete on all fronts. I do think it really needs to be a senior centre-half for me. I'm struggling to see it any other way. In terms of the other names that are being linked, I don't know if you've probably seen all this. Leone, the young Italian 18-year-old from Parma. Again, if you look, less than 1,200 minutes in Serie A last season. Potential, no doubts about it at all. A 63% aerial duel rate. Great potential. Starting now? You want to put him straight into the Premier League side right now, if he was even alongside Canate and Virgil van Dijk, would you be comfortable with that? Knowing as well how often Italian players don't travel well outside of Serie A, and especially into the Premier League, as history's told us as well. I'm probably getting the name wrong, but Kouliarakis, the other one that seems to have been linked, again, plays from the left side, left-footed, doesn't he? So Virgil's there. First team ready, straight away, no Prem experience. There is other names that are in the mix, but it keeps coming back to this 18 to 24-year-olds, like the Worst Club 18 to 30 version of Patch Journos are reporting, aren't they? Coming into that centre-back. And there are names that I wouldn't mind, like Coney De Winter at Genoa. He's been linked, can play centre-back, right-back, and even has played on occasions holding midfielder. Aerially dominant at the same time as well. There's a lot to like about that name. Van Hecke from Brighton has also been in the mix. Of course, he's played that murder ball under De Zerbi. We know how Brighton play out from the back. And Slot, as we know, is looking for ballers, people who could progress it from that back line. If you've any doubt over that, why was Dean Huijsen always the first choice this summer? Yeah, Arne Slot wants ballers. As much as it's great to have an aerial behemoth, that comes into the mix as well. So yeah, it's just with all the names, Mark Gay makes all the sense in the world for this 40 million quid that seems to now be going around, as Ed Aaron's reported as well. But Liverpool seem to want to pay something starting with a 3. Nothing's going to happen before the Community Shield. Maybe nothing's going to happen as well before the 11th of August, that CAS ruling. Maybe that goes into the mix. But for me, you'd want to see a centre-half in soon so they can get up to speed, especially if they're coming from abroad even. You know, when they're young, the longer they're not with us, the more detrimental it is to this season. I really do think that. Which then brings to the rankings, because someone said there, if Canate and Gomez are injured, who plays? That's a bit of a question mark at the moment, isn't it, as well? It's VVD and Ibu. They're the starters. Joe Gomez seems to be third choice, but will Joe Gomez be fit? If will Joe Gomez be fit? Of course. That comes into the mix as well. So who's fourth? I would suggest, based on what we've seen, strap a number 3 on his back, get a gum shield in his mouth, because he's going to kick that out of everyone. He's here. The Japanese captain. For me, it's fourth choice centre-back right now. Played with Canate the other night, didn't he? Struggling to make a case against that. Although, I don't like doing this at all, but you've got to consider it at the same time. Gravenberch is another option that, and again, for you thinking, why are you doing that? Arne Slot's words. He said about, Endo can play there. Gravenberch, when he was asked about, do you need another centre-half, saying, well, we've got plenty of options. He did admit, naturally, and I think there's always a bit of kidology, shall we say, or the way managers say things. Of course there is. But, importantly, Joel Kwanzaa's gone, and he mentioned that. We need a centre-half, though, don't we? It's not a panic by any means. That is not what I'm saying whatsoever. What do we need to take us further? As I started the show saying, in all competitions, that is the big question. There's a lot to like about this Liverpool squad. And again, even with the news breaking today, it has effects on all areas. But there's still a few things you wouldn't mind, eh? And even this, the net spend, I can even mention that in this one because it's just funny. Now, when I'm using these figures, I'm using pounds And I'm including potential add-ons as well. 400 jumps and that say that's not guaranteed, just because people do it in different ways to make points. Be consistent. So the figures I'm quoting are in pounds and would include all add-ons of ins and outs. So just look at this. And I've used a specific source for this to be consistent as well. The ins so far this summer. Marmadashvili, 29 million. Frimpong, 29.5 million. Pesci, 1.5. Wirtz, 116. Kirkes, 40. Freddie Woodman, a free. Hugo Ekitike, 79. And Will Wright, 200 grand. Which, if you do a little bit of Carol Mordeman, Rachel Riley style maths, brings you to the ins, if all add-ons are met, of 295.2 million. I should be writing it down like Vorderman, shouldn't I, on that thing and giving you numbers, but 295.2 million right now. Now the outs. Just do a bit of this maths as well. That lad, I can't remember, who went to Real Madrid and we got 8.5 million back. Queven Kelleher, 18 million, again, if all add-ons are met. Jarell Quansah, 34 million. Nat Phillips, 3 million. Diaz, 65.5 million. Tyler Morton, 15 million. And I'm including now Darwin Núñez at 56.5 million. If all that is kept the same, that is outgoings, sales raised by Richard Hughes and Co. of 200.5 million, which, if you actually do the quick bit of maths, means the net spend, obviously, again, this is subject to Darwin, and you saw how I presented those figures, just under 95 million, which, when other fans crow about everything and Liverpool spending and crazy, yeah. And that's also a part of why Alexander Isak could, most likely will, be heading to Anfield. There's money there. Just keep those maths in mind at the same time. Yeah? Plenty to consider, isn't there? Is that forward line enough? If Isak comes, does Isak, Ekitike, Salah, Gakpo, supported by Wirtz, and maybe young Rio and Gamoa, cut it? Don't know. Midfield. Is Trey Ione now fifth choice? Yeah, with the core four. Endo may be relegated there. Talking about Endo being relegated, is he the fourth choice centre-half? And with Joe Gomez being injured, is he the natural backup in that position as well? Mark Gay, we all want, or many people want, that's fair to say. What about the other names? Have they got enough experience? Genuinely, there's not that many weeks till the season starts. There's a fair few weeks in the window. And even now, despite the fact that we've signed, 7 through the door, 8 through the door with the Freddie Woodman as well, including Will Wright in that, there's still quite a few bits. Now, just on this, people, I see quite a few mentioning Bradley Barcola, and that seems to be from a few sources there. I think the Isak deal would have to fall flat for that, wouldn't it, in all honesty? Because after the Isak money spent, if he comes in, surely someone goes for Bradley Barcola. I mean, Malik Fofana was linked as a youngster who could develop. That's not Bradley Barcola. Bradley Barcola coming in is going to expect to play right now, straight away, which Cody Gakpo might have something to say on the left, Mo Salah on the right as well. So it just doesn't quite feel right, that one. It feels more like a name that suits and, is designed to get juices flowing. Could be wrong, but doesn't really feel that there's too much in that name. Think of the same. Rodrigo was there, and that was kiboshed with wages and different bits as well. And also, Barcola is a Mendes client as well, who's well entrenched at PSG. There's a lot of Mendes clients there. Not impossible. Won't mind it by any means, but it just feels highly unlikely, that one. We'll see anyway. This won't be the last positional play we do before the start of the season. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. Give us a shout. What do you think of the new format, the new toy, the way we're trying to do things and change it up? Very shortly, I know Bart's will be back. So when we're doing transfer market metrics and we're profiling players, we will have this dashboard and bring a stats element to the mix as well. But there we go. Hopefully I've covered you till we get home, if that was drive time. And oh my God, people, SG20, yes, I have 12 on the pitch. I've had 15 at one stage. As I said numerous times on this pod, it was to illustrate different positions and different things. That was all. So just in case, I can't believe I'm saying this now for a seventh time on this pod, you've seen 12, 14, 16. It was to talk about positions and different options. But on Wednesday, the 6th of August, that was another positional play for Anfield Index.